It was a quiet winter night in rural Texas when Mark first encountered them. The air was thick with silence, except for the occasional howling of the wind. Mark, a truck driver returning from a late shift, pulled into a dimly lit gas station to refuel. As he stepped out of his truck, he felt an eerie sensation, like someone was watching him. Then he saw them. Two children, no older than 10, stood near the gas pumps. They were dressed oddly, as if they had stepped out of a different era. Their skin was pale, their faces devoid of any emotion. But it was their eyes that sent a chill down Mark's spine, pitch-black, soulless voids that seemed to swallow the dim light around them. "Sir, can you help us?" one of them asked in a monotone voice. "We need a ride home." Every instinct in Mark's body screamed at him to run. His pulse quickened, his breath hitched. Something about these children was wrong. He took a step back, gripping his truck keys tightly. I can't. Sorry," he muttered, turning to get into his vehicle. A sudden pressure in the air made his skin prickle. The gas station lights flickered. When he looked back, the children were closer. Much closer. "Please, sir, we can't come in unless you invite us." The way they spoke, so calm, so deliberate, sent a wave of terror through Mark. Without another word, he jumped into his truck, locked the doors, and turned the ignition. But his horror didn't end there. As he drove off, he caught a glimpse of them in his rearview mirror. They stood still, watching, their black eyes gleaming under the flickering light. And then, in a split second, they disappeared. Over the next few nights, Mark's life took a dark turn. He would wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of knocking on his front door, soft, persistent. When he dared to peek through the peephole, he saw them, standing motionless, waiting. No footprints in the snow, no sign of anyone ever being there. Terrified, he reached out to an old friend, a paranormal investigator named Richard. When Richard heard Mark's story, his face turned pale. "You didn't let them in, did you?" "No, of course not," Mark replied, his voice shaking. "Good," Richard said, "because if you had, you wouldn't be here talking to me." The encounters didn't stop. The knocking continued. The whispers outside his window grew louder. And one night, as Mark sat in his living room, shotgun in hand, the power went out. The darkness swallowed the house whole. A voice came from the hallway. "Sir, please let us in." Mark raised his gun, but his hands trembled. He had never felt fear like this before. The air grew colder, his breath visible in the darkness. And then, silence. The next morning, Mark left town and never looked back. To this day, he refuses to talk about what happened that final night. But one thing is certain. He was never the same again. Have you ever encountered the black-eyed children? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love spine-chilling horror stories, make sure to subscribe to Ghost Story 2.0, because the next story might just be even more terrifying.